Welcome to Parents Make a Difference. I'm your host, Josiepv. I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Futa, previous Assistant General Manager of the Los Angeles Kings. He was part of that team when they won not one but two Stanley Cups. This episode is a highlight of the full interview, which can be found under the description below. In such a high position job, there is a lot of adversity. Are you interested in how Michael thinks in regards to overcoming obstacles? How he is able to keep the right perspective? He shares this, which I believe can help us parents and our kids. But I love the fact that you had said that even the last year of high school, what did you say? You got suspended. And it's like, see, but that doesn't matter. It didn't stop you from moving forward and still achieving. So if any parents out there, things aren't going right with your kids, have hope,
It's about hope, but it's funny. The year that I got suspended in hockey, when they did their hearing in that, I was immediately reinstated. And I went on that year to be the MVP of the league and most gentlemanly player. So I think there was a lot of things that went into it that the people around knew that it was a blip on the radar screen for me. I was actually at the time doing something that my coach had asked me to do. And it was a stupid thing. He asked me, we were playing at Western Arena, and he asked me to score it. We were getting killed, and he was trying to distract, and he asked me to score a goal in our own net. Intentionally, which I wouldn't even, now I think, are you kidding me? When you're impressionable and you do something like that, I did it, and I was suspended for making a travesty of hockey, and Yale was in the building that night, and they weren't impressed with the way it looked. And it was on sports. There was a show called Sportsline at night, and it was on, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
Hard.
It was bad, but I bounced back from it. And
you did.
Fortunately enough, people knew enough about me as a person to know that it was a blip. It wasn't something that there was a period of events that I got myself into trouble. That just wasn't my makeup. But no, it was good. I mean, I took pride in being captain of almost every team that I played for. And when people instill you with that kind of leadership, that's when I know it's not just about looking after yourself. That's what I loved about hockey. It was about looking after your teammates. And it's amazing how many of my Henry Carr teammates will reach out to me. Like even a good friend of mine, Ian Collins, was going through some stuff, and he just had his first baby girl. And we just talked. Like, he was talking to me about some of the stuff that he had to deal with, being a young black hockey player, and how hard it was for him at the time. And now that he's a dad, how he's had to respond and evolve as a human being. And it's just amazing to think, how primitive some of the adults were back when we were younger, with some of the stuff they say and use to motivate a young player to win a hockey game, as opposed to really looking at the big picture about you're really trying to produce a great young man as well. And I mean, I learned a lot of lessons along the way too I feel like I'm a really good listener and a really strong communicator when it comes to the players that come into my office. But I knew the big picture. I remember suspending one of our players in Owen Sound for constant abuse of alcohol. And I remember the fans losing it on me because this guy's a great player. The team isn't as good without him in the lineup. And I said, I've got to teach him a life lesson. And he ended up, 5 years ago, he killed someone drinking and driving, right? In a vehicular homicide. So, I did everything possible, but there were so many people pushing to, don't worry about that. He's a good player. Don't worry about what he does away from the rink. He's a good player. And you hear as many great stories as you hear. Like, two of my most proud moments to the players, and I'm sure your sons would know Wayne Simmons because he played for the Leafs. But Wayne, I brought him to Owen Sound as an undrafted player. Mm-hmm. Was never drafted. I ended up leaving and drafting into Los Angeles, and then he became an NHL All-Star. He was never drafted anywhere else. He was overlooked in the draft. And then Mark Giordano, who's the captain of the Calgary Flames, a Rexdale kid, I signed him as a free agent in Owen Sound. He's still never been drafted anywhere. So if you want to have kids to dream about, everybody's, I didn't get drafted, I'm done. Well, he never got drafted in the Ontario Hockey League, and he just got through that adversity. Then he never got drafted in the National Hockey League, and he got through that adversity. And then he found a way to get himself, and just never gave up, took no shortcuts, finally made the Calgary Flames as a free agent, and now he's the captain of the Calgary Flames. And last year he won the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. So
amazing. That's a great story.
Talk about dare to dream. And the thing about it, sometimes it's great to find great hockey players that do things great on the ice. But 2 years ago, the Mark Messier Leadership Award which is basically for the most contributions to the community charity wise and the best people. The two finalists were Wayne Simmons and Mark Giordano. So I felt, my God, that to me felt just as good as when I heard there's an NHL All-Star, because I wasn't wrong about them as people and as human beings. And when you find people that are that good and strong character wise, it only makes me look better, but you just see what great family men they become. And that was the kind of pride stories with regards to the people you draft and the people you associate yourself with that make it all worthwhile.
Absolutely. And I mean, success is really all rounded, right? It's not just achieving one success. It's who are you? What are you doing, to pay it forward? It's so much more than just winning something.
Yeah, pay it forward is one of those. Father McLean paid it forward for me. Even when I came back, I had sold my place in Vaughan in COVID. I didn't have a place. I had spoken at this gentleman's golf tournaments a couple times. He was at one of my Stanley Cup parties, and all of a sudden he's like, I know you're going through a tough time not having your house anymore. He goes, I've got an empty home in King City. It's all yours. And it was like, pay it forward. So here I am in a beautiful home that my daughters can visit me while I'm in transition.
Yeah.
And then again, there was a story, going in your story, we do a lot of charity work and stuff, and you see a lot of things. And that was something that was completely new for me, but introduced through one of our players, Justin Williams in North Carolina. He introduced me. I came into the hotel when we were playing the Leafs, and there was this beautiful little girl, no hair in her head, in a wheelchair with her foot on upside down. And I was like, I was just dead. The smile was so radiant. I went over to her and I introduced myself and I met the family. But I remember particularly having an LA Kings toot, because I thought, wow, she's going to be cold in the rink with her little bald head there. And they told me the story how she had, when she lost her leg, because I said, why is the foot? And she her dream was to be a pro hockey player. And she'd gone through Haley Wickenheiser in her Dare to Dream. And Ryan Reynolds was her sponsor as well, the actor.
Sick Kids, yeah.
I through Sick Kids, and I was like, wow, she had done it because when she couldn't play ice hockey, this was the only way her leg could fit into, so she could be a sledge hockey Olympian. Oh. And it was such an incredible story to see this little girl battle. And I always use her as when I have an woe is me moment.
Yes.
I think about this young girl that her dream was to drop the puck at center ice. So I talked to the parents and I flew her down to Los Angeles with her mom and dad, and she ended up, Justin Williams was our honorary captain that night, and Mark Giordano, we were playing the Calgary Flames. So you talk about karma. They're the two captains that night, dropping the puck, and Amazing Grace brought out to center ice and dropped the puck, and the entire buildings, 18,000 people were chanting her name. And I had given her, a little, she was my guardian angel. So I'd given her a little angel, which she wore, and she came back. And unfortunately, I hate to use the term, she lost her battle with cancer. Yes. But Grace with Haley Wickenheiser, and every year when we came to Toronto, we would hospital for kid. A friend would donate a box, and my family would sit with Grace's family, and they have become one of the closest families ever. And everything I do charity wise, we've raised, like, we're up to over, between her foundation, my friends had put in, I think it was 15, we're well over $120,000 raised for the hospital for sick kids in the name of Amazing Grace Bowen. So those kind of stories, beautiful. Oh, just perspective. I was asked to speak. Yes. I delivered the eulogy at her funeral, and it was one of the hardest moments. When I went in, I was absolutely shivering because it was an open casket. But the first thing I noticed was my angel on her peacefulness. And it was like, I remember at the church, my first word was, my name is Michael, and I'm a Graceaholic. I still get choked, and Haley, I become best friends with Haley about it. But it just puts things into perspective again, because that little girl would have, if you'd seen the way she lit up her room with her energy, she would have achieved anything. Well,
she already did, right? Look at that. Look at the way she touched you. You touching her, but she touched you.
Everybody. But and that's the thing. Like, it's like whenever you say it's past, as much as it's sad, it puts it in perspective. So if I just find, when I start to feel sorry for myself, or when you steer a little bit, or the thing doesn't always go your way, I always think of her, right? And think of what her life had left to offer. And I don't ever want my daughters to take shortcuts that way or feel sorry for themselves. And maybe always emotionally, we're going to have times where we feel sorry for ourselves, but to be strong and get through it, because there's better days ahead. And some people haven't had that opportunity to advance with their life at a young age. So it brings a lot of perspective. I always loved the word team. It was something about being a part of a team. And then teams relate to me to family, right? That's your team, that's your squad. And how are you going to get the best out of your teammates? How are you going to get the best out of your, you plan as a family, you plan as a team. Your ultimate goal is to win a championship. Well, it's not just going to happen. How are we going to get all of our individuals on board to achieve that goal? And those kind of things just thrill me and excite me. The ability to, when a teammate's down, to find ways, to look into their past, to find out, what's bothering them away from the rink. It's obviously not just always about ice time. Like, you might not know what's going on at that person's house, or what's been wrong with their day, and to just judge. It's always one of those things. It's like, I have a pet peeve that when people who have no idea what you're doing now, everybody now, we used to communicate by, I don't even know what a home phone looks like anymore. And everybody's got cell phones, everybody's texting, there's 900 different devices. People that text you, and like, I'd be literally like in the middle of a meeting with like 20 people, and you just kind of check your text, because you always, especially when you have kids, and it shows that you've read it, but you don't respond right away, right? And then the person on the other end, you start to get, oh, I see you read my text. What, you don't have time to respond? Those are the kind of short-sightedness people that you have to put into perspective what everybody else is going through. And I think people like that, I always thought they'd probably be better in individual sports, which there's nothing wrong with individual sports, because, but if you think about it, like they say golf's an individual sport, but you know what? The higher level you get, how much a professional golfer requires his caddy, how important his caddy is with the yardage to turn it into. So it's really a team sport. It is a team sport. There's not too many sports that you're just on your own and that's it. It's just you. You either need great coaches or great team, whether it's race car driving or in everything. And that just, for me, I love the aspect of a team sport and realizing that you got to get everybody going in the right direction. You don't want to take any shortcuts. If somebody's not pulling their weight, that you can find a positive way to motivate them to start pulling their weight. And I always relate that back to family. And the same thing with a family. You want to have goals as a family. And if you're just telling people how it is and not listening, it's going to be hard to get them to reach their ultimate goals. There's got to be as much listening as there is talking.
Yeah, and it sounds like that, well, we need to help our kids to make sure that their communication skills are up there, that they're learning how to work as a team in the family unit, because then they take it out to the fields that they go into and they can excel more.
If your kids are afraid to tell you what's on their mind and what's bothering them, that's concerning.
Yeah.
That's concerning. You've got to provide an environment where the freedom, your listening skills are there, that if something's happened to them away from the school or something, that they're just not, they know they have parents that they can go to that are going to listen and not judge. They're going to listen.
Right. Not judging is the important part too, that I think parents need to hear.
Yeah.
Not judging, because they'll come more to you if you're not judging. If you're judging, they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to go next time.
Yeah. Like if your first thing is a scream at them, that could cost you, and not just listen, and then eventually get to, the repercussions of, doing that again, whether it was something wrong or even trying to deal with somebody that might be bullying them. There's so many different facets now. They've got to be so comfortable with their surroundings that they can always come to mom and dad to get what's on their mind and get help or get advice.
Yeah, if we're comfortable in our skin, or if we can move through obstacles through talking and with family support, I mean, I think we can excel in anything we put our mind to. This is just a highlight of the full interview, which you can access in the description below. Whatever your child's dream is, you won't want to miss learning from Michael's stories and advice. He is sharing success thinking principles that you can use to help your children achieve their dreams. Parents, you make a difference.